Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I've got a collection of some fairly recent stories about this weird area where I live. Be me. Moved some while ago to this area in the outskirts of Sydney. Historically significant area, quite rough but getting gentrified. I live up a hill from the thick of it, hear gunshots from down the hill from time to time, but it's dead quiet in the section I myself live in. Emphasis on dead quiet. There are no less than 4 separate cemeteries on my path downhill to the station. I'm poor, so I have to walk this route to get to the station if I want to go anywhere. Weird stuff happens nearly every time I walk this route at night. Amusingly, never anything criminal or life-threatening though. The only time kids have tried to rob me. They deem me too poor and scattered. A number of weird things have happened in this area, but for the time being, I'll focus on just the weirdness on the main road up the hill. The first of which, late 2022, walking home after a night out with the lads, in a terrible mood and can't really tell why. Pitch black night, kinda unusual for my area, not much light pollution, and sprinkling down a tiny bit of rain. Walk past the biggest cemetery around the halfway point of my walk. As I approach a streetlight, fizzle and plink, it turns off. Not a huge deal as passing cars illuminate the path well enough. The next streetlight, fizzle and plink again as I pass. Okay, what the hell? And the first streetlight is turned back on again, third streetlight, fizzle and plink, second streetlight back on. Until the next block, this wave of streetlights dying keeps happening, fouling my mood some more. Aside from the rain and my scowl, the next third of the journey is unremarkable. Get near the top, close to my house. See a black cat hanging around. Ain't no superstitious coward, desperate for company. So knowing I'm good with animals, generally speaking, I crouch down and beckon. Looks at me with eyes wide open, bolt upright, flees. Tell a friend, she tells me, you have become the avatar of death tonight. Har, very funny. Skipping ahead to this week. Driving down the hill with my mother, we notice the street lights have been upgraded with extra floodlights shining into the cemetery. Probably to catch the local goths in there. The important part is that they work, right? A few days later, Valentine's Day. I had a really shitty day with my friends, in a sour mood again. It's spitting down rain again and it's past midnight. Get up to your old cemetery again and what do you know? All those brand new streetlights went out again, this time all at once. The whole crest of the hill is blanketed in night. Pic related. A photo I took when it happened. Grumble internally, send another friend a message about it. He jokes, "Are you about to get abducted?" For comedic effect, I do not reply for a bit. Keep walking. Just at the edge of the dead swath of streetlights, I see another cat. Orange this time, not the black one, and about 1.5 kilometers away from the previous cat. Sure, that doesn't seem too weird. Again, I'm in a bad mood and wanting some companionship. Approach the cat, mildly concerned about why it's wandering around someone's driveway in the rain in the dead of night. Side note, can you imagine living across the road from a cemetery, let alone one where the lights ominously die just like its inhabitants when you approach? Approach the cat. In the low light, I hadn't realized from long range that it was weirdly lumpy. Get closer. Cannot for the life of me tell if it's looking at me side on or if it's looking away from me. Think I can see a face staring at me. No, just its weird lumpy fur on the side of its head. The shadows it cast looked kinda like a face, disconcerting, but whatever. I'm just being paranoid. Notice it's hobbling in a very ungainly manner, looks almost injured, like the hip was shattered. One haunch was higher than the other. Weird-ass cat. I am now more concerned for the cat more than anything. If it's injured, wandering and caught in the rain, I want to help it. The cat does not seem to give a damn about me no matter how much I pss for it. Even clapping doesn't so much as make it flinch. A bit disturbed that it hasn't noticed me yet despite how close I'm getting. Have stepped onto the property now. Oh shit, WTF. Think for a brief second I saw black gaping pits where its eyes should be. False alarm. It was just the poor lighting. It has eyes. Wait, what the hell? Its eyes are wide open, unblinking, emotionless. Eyes don't even so much as refocus when I cross its line of sight. It doesn't react to my existence at all. Watch as it hobbles face first into a wall with open eyes. Bounce off it, rinse and repeat. The body flinches, the eyes don't even blink when this happens. Not a sound from the cat's mouth. I have been watching this for a while, trying to get in its way, catch its gaze, make enough noise to attract it. Anything to snap it out of this bizarre state. It seems to only faintly register something when I clap again. Maybe it's almost deaf, and maybe it's blind. Eyes didn't look blind though, so I don't know. Anyway, it started walking towards me, so I take a chance, crouch down and hope it doesn't attack me. It walks right into my leg and bounces off it again, once again with the messed up open eyes. Try to pat it. The body lacks heat, is as hard as a rock and as lumpy as it looks, meaning that it's not matted fur causing the weird shapes. It reacts to my touch as if it were an obstacle or an attacker, not a hand. Split second later, it resets to abnormal. It didn't run for the hills like the other cat, just keeps staggering. Face first into another obstacle like nothing happened. More than a bit alarmed by this, but even more alarmed by it trying to walk to the road. If it's deaf and blind, it won't stand a chance. Block its path, herd it into some guy's fenced yard, close it off. I can hear they're all landing behind me. The cockatoo is giving me a positively zoinked stare. Still does not move despite all the birds flying past us. Fair enough, neither have I. Shoot some photos over my shoulder at the birds I can hear. Pick related. They've all landed behind me, slowly turn around to face them. They all stare at me, bug-eyed and gobsmacked, and shuffle as a group around to my right, the same way I'm turning. Past 90 degrees of rotation, they all take to the air again and fly right back up to the roof, visibly looking over their avian shoulders at me as they flew by. All is returned to as it was. The cockatoo is still staring. No recourse left. I give an exaggerated shrug, throw back my head with a cackle, and I ask the cockatoo, "Now what was all that about?" He just keeps looking at me and blinks. A fair response to a crazy guy who talks to animals. Utterly chuffed by this ridiculous event. And so soon after that weird encounter with the cat, this was a short way up the road from there too. I saunter back home to tell everyone about it. Now for some briefer stories and anecdotes about this area. They're probably a bit spookier, but generally a bit less weird. First moved in after some batty old lady shipped off to a nursing home, vacating the house. The first thing I felt about this place was that it felt weirdly hostile and oppressive, as if there were invisible faces hanging in the air around me, scowling hard. She left behind a gollywog. You've seen one before, look it up, which I gifted to my black best friend as a terrible joke. He thought it was hilarious too, kept lynching her around his house. His brother didn't see what was causing the doll to keep moving and wind up in such ominous positions, so he assumes she's possessed by the soul of some black lady who got lynched. He promptly shoves the gollywog in a shoebox and hides her away under a bed, never to be seen again. The house feels less hostile but still freaky after this. The place has lightened up a bit since we started introducing our own pot plants amongst the old lady's plants. While planting our stuff in the garden beds, find some old urns. Oh shit, wild. I thought it felt like something had died here. I still can't shake the feeling that that's not everything. Something really upsets me and unnerves me about the hatch to the subfloor. The subfloor area is damp and mold has grown on it like grass. If there are any skeletons of estranged husbands, I can't see them. The bedroom is right above the subfloor entrance and boasts a number of holes into it that keep letting critters in. Have woken up with dead cockroaches in my bed or to ants biting me. At one point, I swear I hallucinated a ball of white light with a screaming face streak past outside. One night, completely worked up about the howling wind, I felt a number of cold skeletal hands reaching up from below and gripping my chest as I was about to drift off. The only thing more prodigious than the pace at which dead birds, especially baby chicks, often still in their reeking rotten eggs, appear in my yard is the rate at which they disappear without a trace. Have left a number of dead birds in special spots around the yard to leave them to rest, like next to a grayed tree stump that had mushrooms growing from it, or in a bird bath next to the urns in an overgrown section of the yard. Every last one disappeared. One time I saw the gigantic local raven eating a small bird on a distant rooftop. Maybe that's where they all went. No clue how it would have found some of these bodies though, 'cause I hid them and didn't see it land in the yard at all. One night a few months ago, I was up late with a visiting friend. Had been talking for some time, so we stepped outside for fresh air. Fog had rolled in. The air was heavy, musty, and humid. The smell of blood and rot filled the air like every grave was dug up. Both nope out and return indoors. Pristine, dry, cold air just a few minutes later. My friend confirms to me that neither of us were imagining things. We really did just smell what we smelled, and it really did just up and disappear together with the fog. Another friend likes to joke about how eerie and uncomfortable it is around here, remarking about how there's no signs of human life beyond me and my family. Says we're alone out here and all the houses are just a front. A former friend tells me she's heard rumors of a cryptid in my area, though in her typical sarcastic fashion remarks that it was probably just some screwed up overgrown cat, before we both bantered about if I or she might have been the real cryptid. Tried to spin a date out of cryptid hunting, but things fell apart numerous times over before that could happen, said former friend who is a classmate of mine who I bumped into on the train about 60 kilometers from uni, after having just seen a deer from the train window for the first time in my life. All my friends joked that she was a skinwalker because of this strange coincidence so far out, and since none of us had seen deer in this area before. Every now and then hear this strange, distant, whooshing, roaring sound from a vortex in the sky has happened a couple of times now. Too big and low to be a plane. Barely any planes out here anyway. No main roads nearby, certainly not a car engine. And the only river is well out of earshot. Grandma has stayed over and remarked during the night about UFOs. And lo and behold, there have indeed been some weird, asymmetrically lit craft, quietly zipping around the night sky at crazy speeds. Hordes of bats migrate across the sky every night because of course they do. And finally, heaps of creatures migrate through the walls of the house at night. Have heard rats, possums, and have even seen large spiders, the size of my hand, of different types scuttling around in formation to hunt the plagues of cockroaches together. Even had frogs get into my room on Halloween and found cannibal snails. Totally forgot also that there is a somewhat legendary local ghost story. Slipped my mind till now I have had no encounters with anything I'd call a ghost. But even in the modern era, people still claim to have seen Fisher's ghost. A story you can look up for yourselves since I was never particularly interested by it. One of the 4 local cemeteries is marked as the Pioneer Cemetery, and houses the remains of the so-called first farmer in colonial Australian history, and so on and so forth. I could keep updating this thread with every slightly kooky thing I've ever seen around here, like the mildly terrifying sculpture of a gray faceless lady in a broad-brimmed hat, ominously lit at night. Or I could document the plants with seed pods that drip some mucus goop when it rains, or the fact that the main road in the town below is full of old geezers who watch you from across the street. Or indeed all the ancient, ghastly, and decrepit old men who have tried to get me to acknowledge them at the train station. But clearly this is more than running its course. The fundamental point I gotta convey, which I hope all these tales of weird events has succeeded in doing for me, is that this is one weird and fucked up place. Taken individually, some of these events are totally commonplace or evidently the product of a paranoid mind with little company to check its perspectives against. Taken all together, however, it demonstrates what a profoundly fucking weird place this is to live in, and how uncanny, abnormal, and oftentimes plain horrifying shit has kinda become the norm around here. It could be scarier, it could be more overt, and it could be more dangerous, but all in all, it's a place that baffles me and unnerves me. I have more stories about even weirder events and places I've lived, but for the time being, I'm going to leave it and call it a night. Hope you all enjoyed the read, and I hope the pictures, when relevant, have helped demonstrate.
Only paranormal thing that has happened to me in 25 years on this planet. This occurred in 2011 when I was 13 years old. Male-only boarding school in Sydney, Australia. Classes end at 3, required to do homework from 4 until 6. The housemaster is strict about this. Afterwards, we're all supposed to walk from the boarding house to the dining hall. Behind on something, the housemaster is making me stay back and finish it, then bring it with me to dinner. Around 6:15 when I finish, step out of my dorm room into the hallway. All floors have dinner at the same time, including staff. Dead silent apart from the fans and air conditioners. The pic related is the hallway at daytime. My room is at the far end of this photo. This building was finished in 2010 and a lot about it is still messed up. The hallway is only partially lit. The lounge room, where the elevator is and where this picture is taken from, has all the lights off. Usually prefer being alone but feel an intense urgency. Like I'm unsafe and need to find another person as soon as possible. Walking fast with the work I had to finish, feeling watched now too. I only feel safe as the elevator is going up. Step out of the elevator. This floor's hall is lit properly, but there's still no one in sight. Walk toward the lobby exit, mounting feelings of dread while passing dorm rooms like I know something is coming. All doors are shut apart from one, partially ajar, no lights on inside. Know instinctively that something is in there. Brain is telling me to look. I don't want to look. Glance to my left as I pass it. Shutter blinds are down. A tiny bit of light from the courtyard is filtering in, fully expecting to see someone but don't. Instead, feel something close behind my right ear, like a mouth or a hand. Turn to see what it is. Nothing there, but I've now broken line of sight with the room. Loud female scream that breaks off into this groan comes from it like a wounded animal. I feel like it wants to kill me and is going to succeed. Tears in my eyes immediately, ears ringing, legs jelly, can feel my heart in my chest. Kind of like that fear you only get in nightmares, probably what it felt like to be chased by predators in prehistoric times. Fastest I've ever ran, feels like whatever it is hovering behind me. Don't look back, round a corner into the lobby. The receptionist is gone, but one of the tutors is on the grass outside. Sees me freaking out, asks what the hell happened, goes inside to check it out. Comes out looking at me like I'm a schizophrenic, gives me some tissues and tells me to go to dinner. Sit down with the other kids. Friend literally says, "You look like you've seen a ghost." I can't remember much after that, I told them, and a few looked spooked but didn't believe me, and the subject changed after. Dropped the work I was supposed to bring while running and got in trouble for forgetting it. Had trouble sleeping afterward. I don't have an explanation for it to this day. If the tutor didn't go and check it out, I'd probably call it a prank by the older kids, but again, it was an all-male school, and whatever that scream was, it was definitely female.
My dad was a former jockey, still into horses, horse breeding, and thoroughbreds. This happened before I was born. Dad was working on a thoroughbred stud farm. They had a champion pregnant mare, so the foal was valuable. The horse was in a paddock by herself, away from other animals like dogs, dingoes, and kangaroos. It was an old bush paddock with a pile of old cars stacked up in a corner, and high fencing to prevent animals or people from getting in or out. I believe the stud farm was in a town called Scone, in the Hunter Valley area of New South Wales, Australia. One night a police officer from the neighboring valley reported some lights in the sky. He followed them as far as he could. The next morning, Dad and another guy went to check on the mare to see if it had gone into foal overnight. They found the mare. She had had the foal, but there was no foal or afterbirth anywhere. There was a large ring burnt into the ground, and the paint on the old cars had been burnt off on the sides facing the ring. Dad also said nothing grew in that ring for a long time. Dad passed away about 13 years ago, so I can't get any more information. My cousins used to tell me stories when I was young about Yowies and Aussie Bigfoot. They told me that Queen Yowie used to ride a chopper. I didn't know what they looked like. I pictured shadow ghosts on bikes, ghosts like in the Scooby-Doo cartoons. Here's a story or two about a ghost in an old building. The building was going to be a church, but it wasn't finished. A priest shot through with the money. The church was turned into a nightclub. I started as a busboy, then barman, and then basically as the bar manager. I opened up and did all the kegs, alcohol, and money. This club/building had a bit of a reputation as having a ghost. People would say they'd see a figure upstairs when they were downstairs, and a glimpse into a large mirror behind the DJ booth. One night I asked a bus girl to work upstairs as we were busy. I went up to see if she needed anything. She didn't notice me standing at the end of the counter, so I flicked a plastic shot glass near her. She took off running back down the stairs. At the end of the nights, we'd have knockoff drinks. Security had kicked everyone out, so the bar staff and security would have a chat and drink. One night, the drinks were at a corner bar downstairs. We had 3 downstairs, 1 upstairs, when all the glasses and a few bottles were smashed upstairs. Everyone took off. We knew no one was up there. We used to operate another nightclub as well, not open at the same time though. That night, I was asked to go to the haunted club to get some alcohol and money. I drove to the club and went in the side door. In total darkness, I had to make my way to the front door, turn off the silent alarm, and turn on a few lights. I then had to go out the back of the cage to get the alcohol I needed, then upstairs to the safe. Once that was all done, I had to turn off the lights, turn on the alarm, and get out. I'd been there plenty of times by myself during the night and day. That night, something felt different. As I turned the lights off and the alarm on, I walked past the entrance to the toilets. I felt like something was there. I turned and looked. It was pitch dark, but there was a darker spot that seemed to move. It made me move, and I couldn't wait to get out. I stumbled down some stairs and tried to calm myself, thinking I was being stupid. I found myself hurrying again to get out and lock up.
This happened to me 2 years ago in regional New South Wales, where I have grown up and where my family heritage is based, and I am still a bit sensitive about it to this day. and write this purely as a warning to future generations or to anyone who happens to visit this certain location, and to reach out to people with similar stories. Now, where I live is a small rural town called Glen Innes in the northern tablelands of New South Wales, but the actual event happened 30 kilometres out of town on the range of the Old Grafton Road around dusk during late winter. My mother and I travelled out of town to stay with her friends on the weekend who lived on a commune called Whitaliba along the Man River. And as a tradition before entering the property, when descending the range down into the valley, to park your car once crossing a small dip in the road called Die Hard Creek, and to get out and wash your feet in the water. People just believed it was symbolic of washing all of the negativity from town away. My mum and I both thought it was an odd tradition, but we always entertained the idea and always enjoyed washing our feet in the crystal clear water. This one particular afternoon was chilly and crisp, and we were looking forward to spending our weekend around a bonfire that we almost didn't stop this time, but my mum felt like there was just enough daylight to jump out to quickly dip our feet. As I got out, I noticed the last moment of sunlight trickle down through the treetops along the ridgeline above us. The roads snaked down the side of the mountain, so I was looking up towards the top, when I noticed a small ambient white light roughly 30 metres above us through the scrub. I was looking directly up the creek and thought that maybe someone was walking around with a torch checking rabbit traps, my best guess. I turned to my mum, who was washing her hands in the water, and asked her what she thought it was. The moment she turned and squinted through the trees, the light shot down directly towards us in an eerily straight line. The next thing I remember is splashing and my mum ripping me towards the car by my shirt arm and throwing her large jacket over our heads as she laid beside me on the back seat. She didn't let me look outside or move for what felt like an hour. I also remember feeling an icy breeze settle over me and an almost overpowering temptation to peek out from the jacket. But my mum was insistent and absolutely spooked. It was almost like she was acting on motherly instincts at the time. When it was truly dark, my mum peeked out and climbed in the front seat and started the car. She quickly drove away but kept an eye on her rear vision mirror the entire trip down. It wasn't until later that night that she told me what we had seen. She called it a min-min light, and her grandmother had warned her about it. The min-min are lost souls of children who drowned in creeks and waterholes and were always searching for other souls, usually small children, to lure away to drown or join them. She told me that they're mostly active during late afternoon and nighttime, but sometimes during the early morning, and that they're almost always found close by bodies of water. She also explained that looking at the lights directly within a close proximity left people in a trance-like state, and that many people who become hypnotized and follow the min-min are never seen again.
The pelicans of Lake Eyre. How do they do it, X? What forces are at play here? Lake Eyre, in the deserts of Central Australia, is the largest lake on the continent, that is, on the rare occasions that it fills. Usually, it is nothing more than a dry salt lake. The Lake Eyre Basin has a drainage basin that covers 1/6 of all Australia. It is one of the largest internal drainage systems in the world and covers roughly 1.2 million square kilometers, including much of inland Queensland, large portions of South Australia and the Northern Territory, and a part of Western New South Wales. To provide a sense of scale, the Lake Eyre Basin is about the size of France, Germany, and Italy combined. All the rivers in this vast flat area led inland. On those fairly rare occasions when there is sufficient rainfall to make the rivers flow at all, they flow towards Lake Eyre, the lowest point on the continent, at approximately 15 meters below sea level. None of the creeks and rivers in the Lake Eyre Basin are permanent. They flow only after heavy rain, which is a rare event in the arid interior of Australia. Because of the flat terrain, it takes almost a year for water to reach Lake Eyre from the headwaters. Usually, none does. It evaporates or is absorbed into the earth. Only in exceptional years is there sufficient upstream rain to provide a flow into Lake Eyre itself. In flood years, the lake bed fills and for a short time undergoes an amazing period of rapid growth and fertility. Typically, a 1.5-meter flood occurs once every few years, and a fill, or near fill, only 4 times each century. Long dormant marine creatures quickly multiply, weeds and algae suddenly flourish, and fish and crustaceans emerge on a fast-breeding cycle. Huge flocks of water birds, numbering in the millions, arrive from around the country to feed and raise their young before the waters evaporate once more. The last notable floods were in 1989 and 1992, each year bringing about 12 cubic kilometers of water into Lake Eyre. But these were dwarfed by the massive 1974 fill, which brought the lake's capacity to almost 40 cubic kilometers. On such a year, the nation's pelicans, which follow no particular schedule of regular movement, flock to Lake Eyre in numbers so great that their absence in coastal areas is unmissable. In fact, the pelican colony that inhabited the lake in 1989 and 90 was estimated to number around 100,000 birds, almost 90% of Australia's total pelican population. They are adventurous and opportunistic birds, trading the comforts of the coast for the harsh outback and the chance of an easy freshwater feed. While the lake was full, the pelicans fledged an estimated 80,000 chicks. The population of Australia's pelicans almost doubled in 1 year. Once the Great Lake dries again, the population disperses once more, flocks of thousands being seen on the northern coasts, and some individuals reaching Christmas Island, Palau, and New Zealand. After decades of research, nobody knows how the birds know when Lake Eyre has been flooded, or how they know the way there from their coastal homes, thousands of kilometers away. Adelaide Zoo research scientist Greg Johnston says there is a theory that the pelican breeding colonies act as information centers, each bird passing on information about good feeding grounds. There are other theories too, including birds having the ability to hear sonic vibrations and pick up on waves lapping at the shores and masses of water in creek systems, and magnetic compasses in their brains working on the magnetic forces on Earth.
Posting some OC. Be student doing rural clinical placement, Central West New South Wales, Australia. Decided to explore Mount Canobolas. 4:15 p.m., still somewhat sunny and bright. Cold as F, reached the peak by car. Just walking around the area. Find some walking tracks, sweet. Don't want to go in too far and deep because daylight's disappearing. Find a short track about 1 kilometer. Leads to some peaky lookout spot. AUS.jpg. Walk several hundred meters. Thick bush. Pick very related, only one walking around like a tourist late noon. Pretty quiet, some birds and stuff. Bushland sounds.mp3. Some cracks, nothing out of the ordinary. Pretty eerie walking alone in some random bush country. Kinda creepy, feels like I'm being watched sometimes. Look back every few meters. Steep downward slope. Walking slowly because it's muddy. After about 400 meters in, I hear a voice. Low guttural sound like a deep low moan amplified through a hollow tree trunk. I'd say almost like a bear. There ain't no koalas here, mate. Kangaroo vocals are slightly different. Pretty sure it's not a bird or some shit. Not a fox howl or anything like that. Dafuk. Freeze for a bit, assess surroundings. Nothing there. The forest goes pretty quiet. Toss up options, back out like a coward or move onwards like a bushman. Testosterone override. Decided to man up and go forward a bit. Walk a few meters. Same voice, this time louder, cleared and more sustained and longer. Nope, 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 nope. Adrenaline coursing through veins. Look back about once or twice just to be sure. Get to peak, get back to the car and out of there. Get back to lodgings. I was curious, so I looked up some things on a hunch. Central West New South Wales. Mount Canobolas is included in the region, Yowie country. Well, shit. For those who don't know, Yowies are the Aussie equivalent of Bigfoot. A few more weeks here. I personally enjoy running trails on weekends. Shit.
Be me. Working at Pete Island Asylum, New South Wales, Australia in the 90s. Asylum was built in a pretty rural country. Only access was via ferry or the single road leading to and from the island. Creepy but fascinating place to work. Get to know a patient called Carlos, a man of Spanish heritage, naturally very Catholic. One of his delusions included thinking I was a Catholic saint, wandering after me wherever he could, praying at me. Over the past week, he had been getting more and more frantic and unpredictable. Told me he was being tormented by a man in black or a shadow man. The exact nature of the delusion changed every day, but the general idea remained the same. Think nothing of it, just a crazy being crazy. One night, 2 a.m. or so, doing my rounds. Open door to the next wing, stopped dead in my tracks. Man dressed in all black with a ski mask standing at the other end of the hallway. Sprints at me and I shit bricks. Run back the way I came and slam the door behind, run all the way to the break room and tell the only other guy on shift someone's in the building. Grabs his pistol, this was back before Australia was cucked, and searched the whole building, was long gone by the time we finished our search. Never found out who it was. Delusions involving dark figures are certainly not uncommon, but a small part of me can't help but think Carlos was being sent some kind of message or warning. That was the scariest thing to happen while I was there, was otherwise a nice place to work. Shame they demolished it in 2010.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.